Okay, and I've been in a very bad mood over the last few months, and that's one of the reasons I haven't really recorded anything, because there hasn't been anything really worth talking about. And there's things been happening in Bosnia, Montenegro, Kosovo, and so on that I approve of quite highly. Masses coming out and burning down the government offices and so on, against corruption, against nepotism, and against the entire system which has let them all down. And in a country like Bosnia, which suffer from extreme ethnic violence and so on, it seems that that's been set aside and the people are rising up against their corrupt masters. So that is good. However, there have been other things going on in the world as well, but I don't want to comment about them in the moment. Later on, as this develops throughout the year, I'll be able to comment on a daily basis. But I was thinking about something else about this country. Of course, nothing's happened in this country. Nothing at all worth talking about, or nothing positive from our point of view. There's been no action on the streets. There's been no resistance. There's just been an acceptance. And the fact that it's quite obvious to me that, and to a few other people now, maybe, that come this time next year, we'll be facing yet another 4 or 5 years of conservative government. But I'd like to talk about a possible dystopian future, something that we should avoid at all costs. And how would this manifest itself? The way I see it, living in London, living in the dead centre of London, where the city of London is just 200 yards from where I live. Or I look out the window, I can see the entire city of London, our wealth manufacturer, according to the politicians on all sides. Now, as you know, there is a good possibility, as you've seen throughout the entire world, everywhere in the world, including places, Islamic countries, where apparently the population is so passive they'll accept anything. Well, I think that's been proved to the exact opposite. And there's war waging in Syria now, on the streets of Egypt, Tunisia, Bahrain, other places. It's at a bit of a low trough now, but it'll come back again. The fact is that it's started, and if it's started, it can start again. So throughout that part of the world and other parts of the world, there are possibilities that there may be revolution on a world basis, particularly as there's a world economic collapse. There's enough dissatisfied people in the world and in Europe to launch a revolution spontaneously. They don't need any parties or anything like that to do it. And we've already seen signs of it with all the riots and everything that have occurred throughout the world. And these riots have got to go further. They've got to start storming buildings and just not burning them down, but occupying them and keeping them. But anyway, what about here? My idea of a dystopian future is that there's revolution throughout the world, but nothing really of any great importance happens here. Now, you might say this would be quite impossible, but remember 1968, there was convulsions throughout the world, east and west, and nothing happened here. The same thing could happen. And if, for example, there was the Saudi Arabian monarchy was overthrown and by some sort of popular or even Islamic uprising, you've got to realise that the Saudi royal family numbers about 10,000 people. And these are like, with dependents and so on, these are like princes, and they're all millionaires and they're all extremely wealthy. Where in the world would they go? They come here. They own half of London anyway. The mega rich from abroad, whether it's Russian oligarchs or people, emirs from Qatar and Saudi Arabians, a lot of Greek millionaires have shifted their money from their impoverished country to over here. So the rich are investing over here. And why are the rich investing over here? Why do the rich feel so, the international rich, feel so safe in investing over here? Because we've got no revolutionary tradition. Because the majority of the population go along with the system. Because, like, the monarchy's still got an 80% sort of approval rating. So there is not much chance of a revolution here, is there? Yes, there are riots and there are upheavals, and the more the bloody better, as far as I can put it, because that's the true lifeblood of the country. But we're never going to have sort of extreme left-wing government elected, or even an extreme right-wing government elected, or anything like that, there's going to be no great convulsions. Their property is safe, their property is guaranteed, and the law, whether it's the law in the courts or the police, is there to guarantee that they will keep their stuff. So we could end up with a London, for example, where a quarter of the population are exiled millionaires, and that's not too far-fetched, because 1 in 20 people, or 1 in 20 adults in London is a millionaire. That's because if you own property, you are virtually a millionaire, because very soon, even a rundown ex-council flat in Barking or Dagenham will probably set you back about £600,000 the way things are going, with property increasing by 10% in value a year in the Greater London area. So it could be that, and a lot of people do own their own property when they exercise their right to buy, or they inherited money and were able to buy property, then yeah. So this could be the millionaires' playground of the world. And the rest of the world so disgusted with us, incapable of overthrowing the government that is so obviously disgustingly corrupt and vile and so on, that is grinding the faces of the poor into the dirt, and yet the poor are unable to do anything about it. The middle classes are unable to, even a tiny section of them, even become Republicans, never mind revolutionaries. Then obviously they're safe here. And the rest of the world might be disgusted and keep Britain as a sort of park where all the ex-dictators, multimillionaires and billionaires that have been thrown out of their own countries because of revolution and upheaval could all come here. And they'd be welcome here. They'd roll out the red carpet. 250,000, 500,000, 1 million of these people would be welcome in this country. Unlike the poor bastards that have to cling to the bottoms of lorries to try and get in, to work for less than minimum wages and so on. No, these people would be welcome over here. And they'd have loads of police to protect them. Laws would protect them. Any threat to them would be crushed and so on. And the rest of the world might say, well, will we invade England and impose a revolutionary regime on them? They'd probably say no. We'll keep it as it is, as a sort of nature reserve, so the people can look and see how bloody awful it was before we overthrew these people, and how bloody awful they were. And that's what they're like, living in England, behaving like that. That's what they are. So that's maybe our future, our dystopian future, as a reservation for the rich, where the rest of the world gets on with the business of revolution and change and liberating humanity and so forth. You might think this is a bit far-fetched, but this is the way it seems to be going. And in the future, politically, you might even have like, is this dystopia or what? That the future of politics in Britain over the next couple of years might be, who is the next Prime Minister? Is it going to be George Osborne? Or is it going to be Boris Johnson? Because I'm sure to hell it ain't going to be that Ed Miliband guy. Obviously, he'll have to get rid of that Cameron, but, you know, they've got dynamism in their own way, in their own logic. So they might get rid of Cameron and put in these other two jokers. And that's what politics will be about. Who do you support, Osborne or Boris? You know, my God, what a choice. Or even, this could happen as well, and I do envisage this happening, that when Charles eventually becomes king, that the guy is such a retarded little fuckhead that he's probably going to make a great balls up of the entire thing. And so therefore, William and Harry are next in line, aren't they? So you might even get like the befuddled masses out on the streets, or sections of the masses, their only political agenda being either supporting Harry or supporting William and Harry factions, like it would have been about 300 years ago during the Regency period or something. That's the way we're going, and I'm not joking. Is this what we want? Is this what we want as our future? Because I don't want it as our future, and I'm quite sure the rest of you listening to me don't want it as a future. And there's only one way out of this. And it's not to vote Labour in the next election. It's not to join your union or anything like that. It's to get out on the streets like they'll be doing throughout the world, like they're doing now, like they've done just recently, and like they're going to do in a bigger style in the future. To get out there and be like the rest of the world, and to overthrow this horrible, exploitative system that should have been got rid of long ago. And they're so arrogant that they're actually planning to celebrate what happened 100 years ago with World War One. So we seem to be going around in continuous circles. We've got to break the circle. And the only way to break the circle is to get out on the streets spontaneously and break it. And it's not going to be done by me. And it's not going to be done by you. And it's not going to be done by any mythical anarchist or lefty movement or the unions or anything like that at all. It's going to happen spontaneously. We don't know how, we don't know where, but we just know that it will, or we hope that it will. And when it happens, we got to be out there, because the future could just be too horrible to even think about. The dystopian future that I've talked about. And in another 10 or 20 years, that may just be it. Or maybe even in another 5 years. Wait and see. Stop the dystopian future. We can do it. We must do it. Because if we don't, we're absolutely screwed in this country.